Let's embody this feeling of welcome with the following. Will this half of the congregation repeat after me? Come in. And as if you were inviting a friend into your home. So let's try that one more time. You've got that. Now the other side, I would like you to say, be among us. And when you say that, turn to the other side and look over there, and look over there, okay? Now I'm going to say some words, and I will gesture to this side, and you say what you need to say. So for instance, if I gesture here, to all who are yearning for community, to all who are just getting started, to all who long to go deeper, to all with tender places needing care, to the ones who have healed and have care to give, for those who are curious and hungry to learn, for those who know that they have something to teach, for the ones who are just beginning to suspect that they might nurture others becoming, to the young and the old, the innocent and the jaded, the fresh of mind and the deeply steeped, there is room here for each and every one. Thank you to Shari Woodbury for those encouraging words. Let us take these thoughts and feelings into the fellowship hall after the service over coffee, tea, and other refreshments. Get to know each other better as individuals and be that caring community. Now, let us center ourselves by speaking our affirmation. Love is our doctrine. Compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration, build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world. Thank you, Guy. Every Sunday, we light 3 chalices. The first for this Unitarian Universalist congregation of Salem. The second for our partner church in Szymanfalva, Transylvania, Romania. And most important, we light this lantern for the children and youth in religious education and around the world, aware that they are our future. Let us think on these simple words. The twinkling light in your eye can inspire like a star. The warmth of your heart can melt the chill of the lost and lonely. Let us sing the flames into light. Time for all ages?
This month we're exploring the practice of story, and today we're diving into that theme by exploring how we as human beings are not just made of stories, but are in fact are writing our own story with every choice and decision we make. So with that in mind, I'm going to share a wisdom tale called The Tale of the Sankofa Bird. Once upon a time, sorry, I forgot to say that if you're young or young at heart, please come join us in the front. I forgot that part. This is only my second time, so give me grace. Thank you for coming up. I forgot my audience. So I'll start at the beginning. Once everyone's seated. Oh, one thing that's cool, the story is based on the Adinkra symbols from Ghana, which I thought was pretty cool, the Akan tribe of Ghana. And Sankofa is a Twi word that loosely translates to go back and get it. So there's more about that. If you want to know more, I'll tell you more later. Once upon a time, in a vibrant village surrounded by lush green hills, there lived a wise bird known as the Sankofa. This beautiful bird had bright feathers that shimmered in the sunlight, and it had a special ability. It could fly forward while looking back at its past. The villagers admired the Sankofa and often sought its wisdom. One day, a child approached the bird to ask a question. You see, the child had been feeling confused about their future and who they were becoming and worried about the choices they would make. "Excuse me, wise Sankofa bird," the child called out. "How can I find my way when I'm unsure of what lies ahead?" The Sankofa flew down from its nest and landed gracefully beside her, its eyes twinkling with kindness. "My dear child," the bird said, "don't you know we are the authors of our own stories? But to understand our future, we must first learn from our past. The journey of life is like flying. You can look ahead, but remember to glance back at where you've been." The child stared at the bird with a puzzled look. "How can looking back help me?" The Sankofa bird replied, "Think of your experiences. Each mistake and success has taught you something. By reflecting on them, you can make better choices. Just as I fly forward while looking back, you too can move ahead with the wisdom you've gained." Inspired, the child thought about their past and all that they learned over the years. They remembered the time they were afraid to speak in front of class, but later found joy in sharing stories and thought, maybe I'll be a writer. They recalled the time they had helped a family member while they were not feeling well and thought, maybe I'll be a doctor or a nurse. They recalled how fun it had been to help build the neighbor's fence and thought, maybe I'd be a carpenter. With each memory, they felt stronger and more confident about who they could be. "Now, child," said the Sankofa, "what do you want to achieve in the future?" "I want to be a storyteller," the child exclaimed. "I want to share stories that inspire others." The Sankofa smiled. "Then remember your past, embrace your courage and creativity, Keep reflecting on your past, and it will guide you in your journey. With newfound determination, the child thanked the Sankofa bird and set off to share their stories with the world, often pausing to remember their past and letting it illuminate their path forward. So I'm going to share the takeaway for that. This story is a wonderful, wonderful reminder that we are the writers and authors of our own stories and how to go about that. I personally love the idea that we need to look backwards to move forward. This is an especially great reminder this time of year, with the New Year's being on everyone's mind. People are thinking a lot about who they are and what they want the next chapter or year to be. And oftentimes, society says that each year starts with a blank slate or a brand new page. But this story and religions like ours tell us that we need to know where we have been to know where we want to go and who we want to become. So, in the week and days ahead, may all of us, kids and adults alike, think about how looking back will help us look forward to what needs to change, what needs to grow, and what needs to expand as we write this next chapter in the story of our lives. And may we especially hold on to this charge and practice as we head off to our RE spaces to explore it more. And we're going to be doing some journaling activities in the back. So please stand up to make the love arch, and we will sing our song as we send off the little ones.
We know there is suffering in the world. You or someone close to you may be in pain right now from injury or illness, from disappointment in a job, from anxiety of the unfamiliar after relocating to a new home, from the loss of a loved one. Large and beyond our control suffering hits us in the gut when we dare to listen to the news about Gaza, Lebanon, and more recently, Las Vegas and New Orleans. What is your pain? Are you or someone you know suffering? Focus your attention on one person or situation, just one. Give it a name. Imagine that you are holding this suffering lightly in your cupped hands. Slowly breathe in and say to yourself, I accept that there is suffering. I accept that there is suffering. Slowly exhale and say, I seek compassion. I seek compassion. And yet, in the midst of suffering, aren't there sparks of joy and laughter, celebration and beauty? When was the last time you said, thank you, to the glass of clean water you drank, the winter buds on tree branches, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the driver who actually stopped at the red light? Gratitude is a practice that can give us the ability to push back on the corrosive effects of suffering. Focus on one small thing that you are grateful for today. Give it a name. Take a slow breath in while saying that name. Now, breathe out saying, I am grateful. I am grateful. Let the practice of gratitude move you beyond the borders of scarcity and pain toward generosity and love. And Margaret, are you our Lifelines person today? All right.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Margaret Gregg, one of your Lifelines lay ministers. I got a lot of moving parts here this morning, and I don't want to miss anything. Oops. Okay. We have joys and sorrows both today. Andy Driscoll says, hope has given way to sadness for our family. My cousin, Susan Driscoll, has just been told her cancer will, in all likelihood, take her life within the next year. The world will be losing a compassionate, vibrant seeker of social justice. Peace to her on her final journey. We'll hold her in our hearts. Adina has a joy. Next week, I'll be visiting my father for a week. It's been years since I've had the chance to see him for so long. Hope you have a good time. We have both a joy and a sorrow from Jared Durow. He's not here today because he's sick and he misses us. And he sends us greetings. And if he's looking to us online, we say hello and hope he's back with us soon. And I have a joy. I got to spend Friday lunch hour with the UU lunch bunch at Capitol Manor. Eric led the discussion, and I think there was about 14 of us. I didn't count, but we had a wonderful lunch together, got to talk and visit, and I just want to send greetings to all of those at Capitol Manor who are watching. And then I got to say thank you to Guy Holman for the music bath. I've missed it. It was wonderful. So let's see, next Sunday is the second Sunday where we have our compassionate connection. And those of us who want a little extra can meet up at the front after the service, and then we'll go off to a private space and just have a talk and give each other support. And we're going to light one last candle for all the joys and sorrows that weren't in the book but are in our hearts. Have a wonderful week. Thank you, friends.
May I be filled Before the year went out and the old year went out and the new year came in, I made a pledge with myself to get rid of old clothes and old habits. One of my lifelong habits, at least since my mid-20s, has been to purchase only gently used clothing. Think Target, I miss Target, Goodwill, thrift stores. Partly, it's to acknowledge what a lot of creativity and industry went into making these clothes. Surely there is more life in them. And partly to celebrate that someone out there likely wore these very pants. And there is a hidden story that tells us why these pants were given away. A story more nuanced and interesting than if they were brand new and just hot off the press. It might be the person changed size. They grew, they shrank, and the pants no longer fit. Or they've moved because they needed to be nearer family, and it's too warm where they're going to keep that turtleneck. Or that dress was for parties, and it reminds her too much of a dear friend who has died. I admit it, wearing used clothes makes me feel connected to others. So, though I will give away or throw away some of my old clothes, I will not get rid of this particular habit. I have to think of something else. I'm going to take a giant leap now and hope you'll come with me. Setting aside old clothes, I wonder about this old world. It has so much history, so many perspectives, so many stories, so much information. How do we even begin to feel connected to it in a meaningful way? It's not really possible to wear the world. Sometimes we don't have to look very far for a possible answer. What we do could happen right here in our own family, our own neighborhood, our own congregation. There is a hymn in the green and the gray hymnal that speaks to this. It's called "This Old World." So I'm going to turn to it, and if you want to turn to it, you may as well. The words are simple, and the melody, which is very old, at least a couple hundred years, has that, at least for me, and I hope for you, that magic of making into sound the yearning to belong. So I'm going to end this reading by singing this to you, and if you want to sing along, you may. This old world is full of sorrow, full of sickness, weak and sore. If you love your neighbor truly, love will come to you the more. We're all children of one family. We're all brothers, sisters too. If you cherish one another, love and friendship come to you. This old world can be a garden full of fragrance, full of grace. If we love our neighbors truly, we must meet them face to face. It is said now, love thy neighbor, and we know well that is true. This the sum of human labor, true for me and true for it be so.
Thank you, Barbara. I always love her words. Many years ago, I was riding a bus in New York City, and at one of the stops, a young woman got on, and she stood in the aisle, and she wept. She looked so alone, and I watched her out of the corner of my eye and debated with myself about how to react. What I wanted to do was reach out and touch her shoulder and say, "How can I help?" But I held back. Offering comfort may have been awkward. It may have embarrassed her. And so I held back all the way to my stop, and in the end, I ignored her suffering. I didn't know her, and I didn't know how she would react if I approached her. We were separated by virtue of our being strangers. Sometimes compassion is easy. It's easy to listen to a friend who's struggling. It's easy to attend a Pride festival. It's fun to support people. It's relatively easy to serve on the food line at the shelter. But sometimes compassion is really complicated. It's difficult to navigate. Sometimes there's the caution, like I felt about just not getting into other people's business. Sometimes we just don't know what to say to someone who is deeply suffering. And sometimes we struggle with compassion because this other person is simply not of our tribe. I was once talking with someone about a trip he had taken. It was a trip, a study abroad trip through his university. And he and his fellow students were walking down a busy street in Tokyo, and they saw a man lying in the gutter. And he was dirty and disheveled, and he looked like he'd had one too many. And so some of the students started snickering and jabbing each other and saying things about him. But the professor did not join in. He went over, he knelt down on the sidewalk, he picked up the man's head and cradled it in his hands, and he said, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" This person told me that was my single most important learning moment in college. It didn't come in a classroom, but it came on a busy street, and where he learned about the power of simple human kindness. This man in the gutter was not a stranger. He was one of us, a fellow human being in trouble. Humans are divided into so many tribes. We're separated by where we worship, the color of our skin, how much money we make. We're separated by who we vote for and whether we're sheltered or unsheltered. We stereotype based on whether someone is from a rural area, the flyover area, right? Or from an important city. We stereotype based on whether someone has 2 years of high school or a college degree, and whether our accent is northern or southern. The US is a huge country, taking in vast swaths of geography. The country was settled by indigenous people, and then there was an overlay of newer settlers, each coming with distinct cultures and life experiences and understanding of the world. We each have our own version of how society should be structured and governed, so it's not surprising that we often find ourselves at odds. Pressure builds up along ideas and ideologies as they clash, and sometimes these divisions turn ugly and even violent. Sometimes it feels impossible to restore balance in a charged atmosphere. Our Unitarian Universalist values invite us to respect the inherent worth and dignity of every individual, to practice compassion, and to accept one another with our differences and in spite of our differences. Our value statement says, "Love is the power that holds us together." We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture. We embrace our commonalities and differences with love, curiosity, and respect. This is sometimes challenging for me. Sometimes I see people who are from a different cultural or political tribe, and I think, how can I love those people? The week before the presidential election, I spent a lot of time hiking. I was worried about the outcome, and I wanted to stay balanced. And several days in a row, I passed another hiker on the trail, and he was wearing a baseball cap that rooted for the other side. I'm ashamed to admit that my first instinctive reaction was dislike. But you know, this man, he offered a big smile and he said, "How are you?" And he said, "Isn't it a beautiful day?" And as I walked on after our conversation, I had some thinking to do. I realized that this encounter is where it starts. I can say, "Oh, compassion, this is something we learn about in church. It's the big spiritual practice, right?" But when the rubber hits the road, and when this person is right in front of me, what do I do then? How can I practice compassion? But how can I not? Is there any other way forward? Is there any other way to turn the page on the divisions that cause suffering? And the fact is that many of those people, the ones in a different cultural and political tribe, they're my family and my friends, and many of them are good people. My sister takes her kids to volunteer at shelters, and she has a really big heart for those who are down on their luck. Another friend of the other tribe helps immigrants get settled in our new country. And I have aunts and uncles and cousins who have integrity and simple decency. They just have different fears and worries and priorities from my own that lead to philosophical differences on some issues. So I ask myself, how do I develop the habit of love and see each person as a sister or a brother? How do I embrace people who have radically different viewpoints? The 14th Dalai Lama talked a lot about how to practice compassion across boundaries. This is a man who was driven from his country at age 15. Chinese soldiers rounded up Tibetan monks and nuns and sent them to labor camps. They destroyed thousands of monasteries, and they tortured ordinary Tibetans. 170,000 Tibetans died in prison. Maybe this is why the Dalai Lama said his greatest personal challenge is anger. But he believes that if he gives his energy to anger, it just begets more anger. I don't know, maybe there's a place for righteous anger, but I think that emotional response can only feed us for so long. The Dalai Lama attempts to practice a radical kind of compassion. He says, we don't learn compassion from our friends. We don't learn compassion from the people who are easy to love. The real practice comes when we attempt to love people who are different from us, who are difficult, who sometimes we might even regard as enemies. This is a long quote, but I want to share it. I think there's such wisdom here. The Dalai Lama said, "Your enemies are your best spiritual teachers. Your enemies are your best spiritual teachers, because their presence provides you with an opportunity to develop patience, understanding, and tolerance. Anger cannot be overcome by anger. True compassion helps us understand that all beings are just like us. Every person has an innate desire to be happy. That is their central fundamental wish, so we share a commonality. The recognition of our commonality is a starting point for developing a mental habit of wishing others to be free of suffering. I want to be free of suffering, and I can take that natural feeling toward myself and cultivate it and extend it outward to others. This season of divisiveness in our society gives us the opportunity to try this out, to take up this practice of finding our commonality. I don't think it's easy. I think that developing this practice develops habit and intention. The writer Sharon Salzberg said, "Love and concern for others are not things that some of us are born with and others are not. Instead, they are the result of what we do with our minds. We can choose to transform our minds so we embody loving kindness. In other words, compassion is an intentional choice." Besides recognizing commonalities, spiritual leaders of many traditions advocate that we can cultivate compassion in another way. They say we can start each day by reciting a prayer or a wish for the well-being of others. Kind of like the song that we just sang, "May you be filled with loving kindness." We can send this mental blessing to all people or to a specific person or a group, that they will find peace and ease, that they will be free from suffering. It's a good prayer because when people are suffering, they cause suffering in others. Spiritual teacher Gil Fronsdal said, "If love is too difficult as a starting place, maybe we can set the bar lower. We can simply care. That might mean showing curiosity or interest in people who are different or who are difficult. That openness," he said, "requires a unique kind of humility. That curiosity begins with trying to really see people." I once watched a video that followed a man as he went through his day. Let's call this man Oliver. Oliver was irritated at a little boy who skateboarded past his driveway every day as he backed out. He was angry at the boy's parents because they didn't teach him any better. He was irritated at the barista in the coffee shop where he stopped on his way to work. This guy was moving kind of slow. And then he was frustrated with a customer who added a cookie to his order at the last moment. Imagine that. It slowed down the line. As Oliver pulled into his workplace, he was exasperated at a woman who pulled into his parking place. As it turned out, Oliver had an opportunity for a do-over. This is kind of like Groundhog Day, except for that he was given a special pair of magic glasses that allowed him to really see people. He saw that the barista's life had not been easy, that he was struggling with sadness, and that he was moving kind of slow. The customer who had added the cookie to his order at the last moment and slowed down the line was now sitting with his little boy. And this cookie was a significant impulse buy because this man had just lost his job. The woman who took Oliver's parking space didn't even see him. She pulled in right in front of him because she was blind with sorrow over the loss of her best friend. When Oliver drove home that night and he pulled into his driveway, here was this little boy comes skating by right in front of him again. And he saw that this little boy was risking his life every day to try to get a little attention. He just needed someone to care and to notice him. Once Oliver recognized the hopes and fears of those people he had found difficult, he felt more compassion for them. He realized that everyone is vulnerable and everyone has a backstory. These backstories live behind the eyes of people who live on the streets. They are behind the eyes of those on the other side of a protest line. People who want a different kind of world than I want have come from different life experiences. Bob talked about this a couple weeks ago. I thought it was a profound homily, and if you have a chance, if you didn't hear it, he talks about how each person comes to their own truth, shaped by their own life experiences. So when I see these stories behind people's eyes, when they offend me or repel me, I want to remember that if I had been born into different circumstances, or with different neurobiology, or with different deficits in my life, or with a different history, I could be living a very different life. I think back to my bus ride in New York City and the stranger I saw who was weeping. I got off at my stop, but the woman's face stayed with me. Later that morning, I stopped by a flea market and I bought this little statue. Her name is Kuan Yin, and she is a Buddhist bodhisattva. She, according to Buddhist legend, Kuan Yin is one who hears the world's cries. She dedicates her actions to releasing all beings from suffering. So Kuan Yin has taken on the task of listening to the suffering of all people. In her heart, no one is anonymous. No one is irrelevant. No one is too poor, or too old and therefore invisible, or too young and therefore not important. No one is too different and no one is too difficult. Her role is to treat all beings with tenderness. According to Kuan Yin, our enemies are not those evil people over there. In the Buddhist tradition, no person is intrinsically evil. Our nature is one of goodness. And people who act with ugliness and violence are simply people who haven't yet learned the skill of compassion. They are suffering deeply within themselves, and their suffering is spilling over and infecting others. When I look at the world through that framework, it leaves more room for me to move forward. No one is worthy of my hatred. In the years since seeing the young woman on the bus, I have known deeper grief. I have come to believe that love is essential for our survival. Not everyone has known love, but it's essential for our well-being. I like to believe now that I would put aside my second guessing and that I would go up and touch her shoulder and say, "How can I help?" Kindness opens our hearts and invites us to recognize the pain of others. Compassion is complicated, but it's also simple in a way. Compassion is simply wishing others to be free of suffering. This is a habit I can choose. It's an energy I can cultivate. And if I'm not up to compassion, I can simply try to care. I can be curious. I can recognize that every person has a backstory, starting from when they're first born and even going back before that. And if I'm not very good at this practice, which is often the case, that's okay. That's why it's called a practice. We're all just a little speck of human life on a planet spinning in a vast universe. We cannot survive as a species unless we cooperate, unless we cultivate harmony. We're all bound together, and our reactions and actions create discord or harmony. Whatever life presents to us, whoever is in front of us, whoever comes up on our news feed, whoever, our response can be love, or at least curiosity. Compassion heals divisions. Tender regard for each other repairs what is broken. Loving kindness is our true nature, and when we practice kindness, we are coming home to our true self. May we nurture a loving heart. I invite you to close your eyes, if you would like, and just sit in stillness. Feel your lungs, your breath move in and out. Compassion for others begins with compassion for myself. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be free from suffering. Now I invite you to think of someone you care for. You can send them blessings. May they be peaceful and at ease. May they be free from suffering. May they be loved. Next, think of someone or group of people that you find difficult. I invite you to send them blessings. May they be happy. May they feel safe. May they feel loved. May they be free from suffering. If that's not comfortable, maybe just ask, can I care? Can I be curious? Now I invite you to send blessings to all beings. May all beings be peaceful and at ease. May all beings be safe. May they be loved. May all beings be free from suffering.
Thank you, Nadine. Every Sunday, we give our financial support for our hardworking staff, this warm, welcoming, and well-lit building, and its programs. Each month, we share the donations with an organization that exemplifies UU values. For the month of January, we share the plate with Family Promise, a nonprofit that supports families in crisis in the Mid-Willamette Valley. UUCS is one of the churches in a network of churches that converts its space into a home for a week to shelter homeless families. Many volunteers are needed for this, to make meals, to be hosts, to spend the night, to set up and take down the beds. It is a tremendous cycle of generosity and gratitude for everyone. Many of you have helped with this process. You have been volunteers. Could I have a show of hands of anybody who has ever contributed to Family Promise, or when it was known as Salem Interfaith Hospitality Network? That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And for those that have not, consider it. It will come around. It comes around a couple times a year. Yeah. So thank you for this. This is really meaningful work. In addition, we count on your continuing donations of non-perishable foods to the Marion Polk Food Share, which you can place in that little red wagon. No one should go hungry in this land of plenty. Our hosts will pass the collection bag to you. Please give generously, either cash or a check made out to UUCS. You may also scan the QR code on your order of service if you'd like to do it that way. And for those online, you can go to the homepage and click on Donate. Follow the instructions. Your gifts reflect the vibrancy of this congregation and are much appreciated. Thank you so much, Guy, for your music, and Lorianne for yours as well. Next Sunday, a theology of trophic cascades. Ooh. I think she started off as a biologist too. She married one. So Monica, Reverend Monica will be with us. I hope I see all of you and some today, next week. And we will learn something about what ecology teaches us. Let's see, news of the community. Any news of the community? If you need to connect to news of the community, there's a wonderful newsletter that goes out every month. Is carefully edited, it's beautiful, has photos in it, and it helps you decide what you're going to do in that month to connect. And if you don't already have a link to it, then email the office. There's the email address, or call, and you can receive the newsletter by email, and it can also be snail mailed to you. And then there's a weekly blast that comes out that you can also sign up for. So stay in touch so you are doing more than just coming here on a Sunday. This is a lot. This is a rich community. Okay, I think that's it. We're going to light, Nadine will light the social justice lantern. It is to remind us that in this coming week, your energy is needed to make bearable a hurting world. It can be as simple as a smile to a stranger, or as big as accepting a position on a community board. Nadine will also extinguish the chalices, the flames, but not the warmth of community that they symbolize. And now, if you will, in body or spirit, rise to do our closing hymn, number 168 in the gray hymnal, One More Step. One more step, we will take one more step. Feel there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song. If you are comfortable, hold your neighbor's hand as we speak the closing words together. May faith in the spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come.